25th Hour is a 2002 American crime drama film directed by Spike Lee joint, based on the novel 25th Hour by David Benioff, with themes of love, loyalty, friendship, family connection, greed, redemption, resistance, and overcoming hardships. It tells the story of Montgomery, a young man who was living out his last day of freedom in the outside world of New York, spending time with his loved ones such as his girlfriend Naturelle and his father James, also including close friends Francis and Jacob, before he is called in to study 7-year sentence in jail for being caught with drugs in his apartment with intent to sell. Set in a time just after 9/11 in New York City. Looking into the character of Montgomery, we see a young Irish-American man who is living with much regret, being that he was caught with over a kilogram of drugs in his apartment. He went from having a scholarship at a good school to getting kicked out for selling weed and eventually finding himself caught with harder drugs. Now getting ready to do time in prison just as he was getting ready to get out of the game. Loyalty is a value that means a lot to Monty, such as the loyalty to his dog Doyle, who he found on the street injured, or even the loyalty to the people close to him he cares about in life, such as his dad and his dad's bar, even if it's over the dealing of misery to various members in the local community. When questioned, Monty doesn't give any information to police for a lighter sentence on his drug-dealing boss, Nikolai, and therefore is ready to do the time for it, even though giving up information could have made life easier. Similarly, in order for him to have some peace of mind in life as he is getting ready to be put away, he asks his friend Francis to do him a favor, which appears to imply that he, Francis, is not only going to end his relationship with Naturelle, but also going on to test her to find out if it was her who was the one who told the police where he had hid the drugs, as Francis goes on to speak to Naturelle demeaningly and even racially in order to find out and have no further connection to her for the time being. Even though she feels he is drunk, she slaps him and leaves as they were drinking together. Not only is Monty getting some peace of mind that Francis and Naturelle won't somehow be together while he's away, but there's also a contemplation that he and Francis might have a bar together when he gets out of jail, and that this is a nice thought to hold on to, seeing he was only 6 months away from giving it all up to get some stocks and grow his money, to now envisioning seeing himself as coming out of prison as an ex-con without many job prospects until this bar idea had come around. With the daunting idea of going to prison, this gives some hope for the future, seeing Monty will still only be 38 years old when he's released. When Monty is having dinner with his dad, he's looking into the mirror in the bathroom and expressing himself about all the people and groups in his neighborhood he can't stand to be around in his life, until he finally gets to himself and says most of all he can't stand himself and that he had it all, but blew it by becoming too greedy. Analysing the character of Francis, Monty's friend, we see another Irish-American man who's been Monty's close friend since they were kids. He works on Wall Street, living in an apartment right across from where the Twin Towers had been struck, as he mentions that Bin Laden's not scaring him away from this neighborhood. He works as a stockbroker, and although he finds himself working in a different world to Monty, as he expresses his discontent and disapproval of Monty's life as a drug dealer, he still finds that they have much in common with each other and will continually catch up. After all, Monty has been known to deal with corporate people and also see their lives change drastically because of it too. When Monty, fearing he'll be assaulted in prison for his looks, asks Francis to do a favor for him by making him look a mess, Francis is persuaded into beating Monty into a bloody mess of bruises and a broken nose, making him look the way he wanted to, even though it was quite a traumatic experience for him to go to such extremes for his close friend. One of the comments that seemed to be able to tip Francis over the edge is when Monty accuses him of wanting to have his girlfriend Naturelle to himself, which brings up some sort of feelings of being insulted, as if he would ever cross the line like that. Looking into the character of Jacob, Monty's other close friend, a high school teacher who we learn has some sort of thing or fantasy for one of his students, 17-year-old Mary. We see as Mary goes about asking Jacob to move her grade up, to which he isn't able to do, when she feels that he was being biased to her when a male student got a better grade and the story didn't seem to have the kind of depth that hers did. While Jacob, Monty, and Francis are out at the bar for Monty's last night of freedom, we see that Jacob is seeking advice from Francis about what to do about this apparent situation of a so-called teacher having intimate feelings for his student and researching what's the right thing to do in this circumstance. Francis tells him that of course it's a bad idea, making a move on her. However, Monty tells him that his situation with Naturel was similar and that he should just wait until she turns 18, and that's not such a bad idea or time then. Monty's influence seems to persuade Jacob to take the steps in pursuing Mary, as he happens to meet her at the same club that night, which ultimately leads to Jacob kissing her in the bathroom, to which they are both shocked about, given the sense that this idea was wrong all along and shouldn't have got to this point. Another side to Jacob shows that he's willing to take on the responsibility of looking after Monty's dog while Monty's away, showing some care and compassion. With the character of Naturel, Monty's girlfriend, we see a young woman who has heritage from Puerto Rico and was just finishing high school when her and Monty met, to which their relationship started. Monty was selling drugs at the time and still was by the time their relationship had come to this point where they were preparing to see him off to jail. Throughout the duration of the film, we see that Naturel's character and loyalty has come into question with the way she is subtly referred to by various people such as the police and one of Monty's drug dealing friends, Kostya, as being the one who tipped the police off about where the drugs were hidden, as was noted when the police raided the apartment, immediately hinting they knew exactly where the drugs were all along. The only people who knew apparently were Naturel and his drug dealing friend Kostya. We learn later from drug dealing boss Nikolai that it was Kostya who tipped off the police, and instead of killing him as payback, Monty leaves him to the rest of the mobsters to deal with, seeing he's done with his life. But in the moment, Monty just wants to know why Kostya made him think it was Naturel who tipped off the police when it wasn't her. Seeing he hasn't seemingly wanted to put Naturel through all of this ordeal, seeing she's been by his side for so long. With the character of Montgomery's father, James, a former firefighter, we see a caring father who reflected that the situation that Monty got himself in now was probably his fault, seeing Monty was only 11 when his mother died, and from this point onwards, he and his father started seeing from this point onwards, his father started drinking heavily, and Monty didn't have much of a stable upbringing because of this. After insisting he drive Monty to jail so he knows where to go when visiting Monty there, even though Monty feels this is something he can't do, he eventually agrees, and his father drives him there as they both fantasize of the imaginary life Monty could potentially live if they kept on driving in a different direction out west. A direction to a hidden location, hiding away from this jail sentence has been awaiting, only to come back to reality as we see them nearing closer to the prison. There's a moment where Monty is appreciating the connection he makes with a little boy on a bus who is writing his name on the window as an introduction, as Monty does the same and waves goodbye. This gives a sense that there is some hope and optimism for Monty and his place in the world, even though the future is looking grim for now. In 25th Hour, we see into a world which shows the difficulties moment to moment of someone who has made a wrong decision, particularly selling drugs or cocaine, and is preparing to go away to jail for 7 years, being ready to see 7 years taken away. It shows the effect and realities of freedom, with the love of life and relationships suddenly disappearing with no choice but to say goodbye to it based on the mistakes of the past. That a love for money and material possessions aren't worth it in the end when the consequences for doing or being on the receiving end of harm on humanity are dire and fatal. I invite you to comment whether you agree or not, or if you have any different takes on this film or its various elements. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.